Zlatan Ibrahimović grew up bullied, beaten, and so poor that his family couldn't even afford to eat. As a teenager, he stole food and even bicycles just to survive, and probably should have ended up in prison for it. But with all the odds stacked against him, somehow he came out on top, becoming one of the greatest football players of all time. So, how did a poor bike thief write his name in history by becoming football's deadliest striker? This is the full story of Zlatan Ibrahimović.
Came like a king, just like a legend.
Gonna fall for Ibrahimović! Oh, come on! Come on!
I'm not a typical Swedish guy, but I put Sweden on the map. So.
On the 3rd of October 1981, Zlatan Ibrahimović was born, and he wasn't dealt the best of hands to begin with. He grew up in a rough neighborhood in Malmö, Sweden, and was bullied as a child. I know it's hard to imagine the 6'5" self-proclaimed lion was ever bullied, but he was small as a kid. He had a big nose and a lisp, so he was an easy target. As a kid, his mother would often hit him with a wooden spoon. The spoon would break on his head, and she would then make him go out and buy a new one just to do it again. Zlatan was living with his single mother and his 5 siblings, whom she was struggling to support by herself with her job as a cleaner. When he was 9, his mother was arrested, so Zlatan was sent off to live with his father, where things didn't get much better. His father did his best and sacrificed everything to give Zlatan a shot at football, even going as far as to delay rent just to pay for Zlatan's football academy. But this had its repercussions. This lack of money often led to a lack of food, and as Zlatan described, an empty fridge with occasional milk, ham, and cheese. This desperation sent Zlatan down a rough path where he would often shoplift just to be able to eat, and would even take this as far as stealing bikes just to support himself. It's crazy to think that if Zlatan continued down that path, he'd just be some criminal in a Swedish prison and wouldn't be the icon we know today. But luckily, Zlatan had one thing going for him. He was a wizard with his feet, having grown up playing street football. But growing up, Zlatan was more than just a football player. He also got his black belt in Taekwondo, but his love for football took over thanks to his idol, Ronaldo Nazario. Now, this rough upbringing of his definitely molded him into the tough guy we know today. He had to be tough just to survive. We see it in the way he plays football, and he even says that to play well, he needs to be angry. What made him even angrier was that he felt inferior to the other kids. He had no money, he had worse clothes, but he told himself, one day I'll show them. This was his motivation to work even harder. At age 15, Zlatan was part of the Malmö Youth Academy and was ready to give up on football. He was close to quitting to go work full-time at the docks, but his coach at the time managed to convince him to stay. Soon after, Zlatan signed his first professional contract with Malmö and joined the senior team at just 17 years old. Now, in Zlatan's position growing up, 99 out of 100 guys would have given up. They would have quit with the impossible odds they were given. But Zlatan was different. He was the 1 out of 100, and he was about to prove his worth as he was finally a professional football player. In 1999, Zlatan Ibrahimović joined the Malmö first team. He spent a couple of years there where he picked up a total of 16 league goals in 40 games, but his talent was clear for everyone to see. At 19 years old, Zlatan transferred from Malmö to Ajax for 9 million euros, which is where his career would shift into a whole new gear. He was actually close to signing for Arsenal, but the manager, Arsene Wenger, wanted him to do a trial first. But even as a teenager, Zlatan found this offer insulting, saying, "I don't do trials. You either want me or you don't." This is where we start to see the ego and the confidence of Zlatan, which would only grow as his career went on, and you'll see a lot more of this soon. But anyway, for now, Zlatan was 19 years old and playing for Ajax. He took some time to get going until a change in management where Ronald Koeman took charge, which is when Zlatan finally became the main man for Ajax. He spent 3 years at the club, winning 2 league titles titles and scoring 48 goals in 110 games. During this time, he made his debut for the Swedish national team, and on national duty, he got himself into some serious controversy with his Ajax teammates. In 2004, Sweden played the Netherlands in a friendly where Zlatan ended up injuring Rafael van der Vaart, his Ajax teammate. Van der Vaart came out and claimed that Zlatan did this on purpose, even though they were teammates at club level, which made Zlatan furious. When he returned to Ajax, he went up to him and told him, "I didn't injure you on purpose, and you know that. If you accuse me again, I'll break both your legs, and that time, it will be on purpose." After this argument, the Ajax fans weren't on Zlatan's side, so on his first game back, the crowd booed him, but within 90 minutes, the boos turned into applause when he scored this goal. This was one of Zlatan's greatest goals, but not his greatest, because we'll get to a few of those soon. But this is the goal that put him into the spotlight of European football and triggered bigger clubs to come knocking. At this time, he also started to work with agent Mino Raiola, who would play a huge role throughout Zlatan's whole career, and together they engineered an €18 million move from Ajax to Juventus, which would mark the start of Zlatan's Italian domination. 22 years old and hungry, Zlatan arrived in Turin and was thrown right into the starting 11 because of an injury to the main striker. In his first season with Juventus, he formed part of a deadly attack with Trezeguet and Del Piero, who helped Juventus lift the Serie A title. Zlatan pitched in with 16 league goals and was given the Foreign Football Player of the Year award in Italy. He was also awarded the Swedish Player of the Year award for the first time. This was an award he would go on to win 14 more times in his career. This season also saw Ibrahimović fall victim to a severely brutal tackle from Marco Materazzi, and this is important because Zlatan isn't one to just forgive and forget, but he'd have to wait to get his revenge. But don't worry, because he definitely got it, as you'll soon see. But anyway, after such a great start to life in Italy, that summer, Juventus allegedly rejected a €70 million bid for him from Real Madrid, but later the truth came out, which was that this was a made-up story by agent Mino Raiola to increase Zlatan's market value. But anyway, moving into his second season with Juventus, things took a turn for the worse as he was shifted out onto the wing and struggled to be as effective as the previous season. They still won the Serie A, but the Juventus fans grew extremely frustrated with Zlatan, but he would prove to be the least of Juve's problems as they had just got caught for match fixing and were immediately relegated to Serie B, meaning that next season Zlatan would be playing in the second division of Italian football. Thankfully for Zlatan, Mino Raiola had his back once again and managed to get him out of Juventus by threatening legal action on the club, so he was able to sign for Italian rivals Inter Milan for a total fee of €25 million. A goal on his Inter debut, and he was already back to his best, leading the line with Hernan Crespo. Inter won the Serie A with a record 97 points in his first season there. Zlatan says that he supported Inter as a child, so this was really a proud achievement for him. In his second season there, he just got even better, as he was becoming the focal point of this attack, winning a second title in a row and picking up the Serie A Player of the Year award. He was now considered as one of the best football players in the world, and he matched that status by signing a new contract, making him the highest paid football player in the world. Now going into the 2008-2009 season, Jose Mourinho arrived at Inter, and it was love at first sight between him and Zlatan. Ibra had his best season ever, scoring 29 goals, winning a third Serie A in a row, and a second Player of the Year award in a row. This bond he built with Jose Mourinho would be important throughout his career, but more on that soon. This season, Zlatan also scored the Serie A goal of the season, which was a great goal. Still, isn't his greatest goal ever, because that's coming in a couple of years' time. Now, despite dominating Serie A and winning 5 titles in a row across 2 clubs, Zlatan was still missing the Champions League trophy, so he decided to move to the reigning champions Barcelona. But little did he know that this would be the start of a nightmare season for Zlatan, which was going to be one of the biggest mistakes in his entire career. But before we get into this horror year, I need your help. You see, I'm trying to hit 100K subs this year, so I'm asking you to please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate the support, and I know we can do it together. But anyway, enough rambling on this. Now let me tell you about Zlatan's nightmare year in Barcelona. A 27-year-old Zlatan landed in Barcelona for a fee of 40 million euros and a swap for Samuel Eto'o, and was arguably the best striker in the world at the time. Zlatan got off to a Rolls-Royce start, scoring in his first 5 consecutive league matches. Things were looking great. He was happy with his manager Pep Guardiola. He was at the best club in Europe, and he was looking like he was finally going to win the Champions League. But one player ruined this all for him. Lionel Messi was the golden boy at Barcelona. He was the best player in the world at the time, and midway through the season, he decided he wanted to start playing through the center in a false 9 position. The problem with this is that was Zlatan's position, meaning he got shifted out wide and even onto the bench at times to accommodate Messi. In Zlatan's autobiography, he had this to say about the situation. It started well, but then Messi started to talk. He wanted to play in the middle, not on the wing, so the system changed from 4-3-3 to 4-5-1. I was sacrificed and no longer had the freedom on the pitch I need to succeed. Now, even though Zlatan lost his position, he still scored a decent amount of goals with 21 goals for the season, but as the season progressed, things only got worse for him. Barcelona made their way to the Champions League semi-final and drew Inter Milan, Zlatan's old club, and they lost. After this game, Zlatan lost it with Guardiola and told him, "You haven't got any balls. You can go to hell." Zlatan was expecting Pep to respond to the confrontation, but that was actually the last conversation they ever had together. From that day on, Pep would avoid Zlatan in training and refuse to communicate with him, which is why Zlatan now describes him as a spineless coward, which showed a severe contrast to the love he had for manager Jose Mourinho in the season before. But to make matters even worse, Inter Milan went on to win the Champions League and the treble, meaning Zlatan's transfer in search of a Champions League trophy was a massive mistake. Now at this point, only one thing was clear, and that was that Zlatan's future with Guardiola and Barcelona was definitely over. So after just one season in Spain, he transferred back to Milan, but not to Inter Milan. Instead, to their fiercest rivals AC Milan, where he was going to take over Serie A once again. Ibrahimović initially signed for AC Milan on a loan deal, but made it permanent after the first season. When he arrived in Milan, he made a statement where he had this to say: "This move gives me more adrenaline. I've moved here to win the Champions League with Milan. I want to win the double." Now, Zlatan must have some Champions League curse, because this season, Barcelona won the Champions League, meaning that 2 years in a row, he transferred to a new club to win the tournament, but the club he transferred from won it instead both times. Despite his Champions League heartaches, he tore up the Serie A with AC Milan, winning the league in his first season, meaning he won it with 3 different clubs, ending Inter Milan's dominance as they won the last 5 titles. Zlatan spent 2 seasons in Milan where he was simply world-class, scoring a total of 56 goals in 85 matches. He also chipped in with a lot of assists, as his all-round play was the best it's ever been. But obviously, this is Zlatan Ibrahimović, so his time in Milan had its share of controversies, and most notably what happened on the 14th of November 2010, because he sent Marco Materazzi to the hospital. In a Milan derby, Zlatan faced off against Marco, and he finally had his chance to get revenge on the Italian defender for that horror tackle he gave him all those years ago. So Zlatan didn't hold back with a kung fu kick to the chest, which sent Materazzi to the emergency room. After the game, Zlatan came out and said that this was completely intentional and that he had to wait 4 years for this moment to finally come. His time at AC Milan also saw him score the greatest goal of his entire career, but this actually came with the national team in a game against England. Sweden won this game 4-2. Zlatan scored all 4 goals, but his 4th goal was something else.
Well, Hart didn't quite get that right. Oh, look at that! That is absolutely astonishing.
This goal was awarded the Puskás Award in 2013 for being the best goal scored in the entire year, and that was definitely deserved. Now, come the end of Zlatan's second season with Milan, they failed to win the Serie A as Juventus picked up the title. But Zlatan had his best individual season yet, scoring 28 goals in 32 league games. By this point in his career, Zlatan was getting bored of the Serie A and was looking for a new challenge. And there was a club over in France that hadn't won the league in 18 years, but was looking like it had the potential to take over football. So with the help of Mino Raiola, Zlatan made the move to PSG for 20 million euros, where he was about to kickstart a new dynasty. On the 17th of July 2012, Paris Saint-Germain announced the signing of their new star striker, Zlatan Ibrahimović. Now Zlatan is 30 years old, and for most football players, that would be the start of their decline, but not Zlatan, because this man aged like fine wine, as he was about to enter what were arguably his prime years, and he still had a decade of top-flight football left in him. Zlatan joined a very exciting PSG team, as they had just been taken over by new owners who were throwing money around, and this spending spree worked, as in Zlatan's first season in France, they lifted the league title for the first time in 19 years. In this first season, Zlatan chipped in with a total of 40 goal contributions and won himself the Ligue 1 Player of the Year award. Oh, and of course, Zlatan got into some, let's say, arguments. In only his first season, he kicked the Saint-Etienne goalkeeper in the chest, he stamped on Lovren's head, and then also got a ban for stamping on the Valencia winger Andres Guardado. Now, roll on the 2013-14 season, and Zlatan just got even better, scoring 41 goals in 46 games, and just like the season before, he won the League Player of the Year award and Top Scorer award. But this year, he also picked up the Ligue 1 Goal of the Season for this wonder strike. He was both a great goal scorer and a scorer of great goals. Now, his third season in Paris was a bit slower compared to the previous two on an individual level, but he still picked up a third league in a row and a domestic quadruple. But maybe he was just fueling up for the 15-16 season, where he really turned up. At 33 years old, Zlatan scored 51 goals in 50 games, as he broke pretty much every record PSG had to be broken. He became their all-time top goal scorer, he won his fourth league in a row, and he cemented himself as a legend in the French capital. But despite putting up these insane stats throughout his entire career, some people still doubted him. He can do it in the French league, but can he do it in the best league in the world? Zlatan knew that to cement his legacy in football, he had to prove himself in the Premier League, and at this same time, his old friend Jose Mourinho took charge of Manchester United and was ready for a reunion with the Swedish striker, as they were ready to prove all the haters wrong. Zlatan signed for Man United as a free agent after being convinced by Jose Mourinho to join. Upon his arrival in England, the English media had it in for him, doubting that he could achieve anything of significance at his old age of 34. But this was just fuel for Zlatan. He loved to hear the doubters and loved to prove them wrong. He got off to a great start by scoring a goal on his debut and continuing this fine form throughout the season. In his first season at United, he won 3 trophies, including a Europa League, making it his first European trophy ever. He also finished the league season with 17 goals, proving he could do it in England, but things really took a turn for the worse in April of that same season. After jumping for the ball, he landed badly and suffered one of the worst injuries a football player can face. He tore a ligament in his knee. An injury like this at 35 years old should be career-ending. Zlatan probably should have retired on the spot after such a great career, but he was determined to recover and come back next season. During the recovery process, the doctors involved said they had never seen a knee recover as well as Zlatan's. They never found one as strong as him, which was just music to his ears. Going into his second season at United, they signed a new striker in Romelu Lukaku, as Zlatan was now deemed old and unreliable. After returning from injury, he struggled to cement a place in the team, and it really was looking like he was done at United. So in March of the 17-18 season, both United and Zlatan mutually agreed to terminate his contract, and Zlatan was left looking for a new challenge in his career. 36 years old, Zlatan decided to make the move over to the MLS to join LA Galaxy. Now, usually when an older player moves to America, it's to ease into retirement in a slower league, and they never return to top-flight football. But Zlatan was different, because after his time in the MLS, he was going to return to Europe for one last hurrah to cement his legacy. But we'll get to that soon. The day Zlatan signed, he paid for a full-page advertisement in the LA Times, where he simply wrote, "Dear Los Angeles, Angeles, you're welcome. But this wasn't the only ego display from Zlatan, because also upon his arrival, NBA star LeBron James sent him a jersey as a welcome gift, and Zlatan signed the jersey and sent it back to LeBron. That's one way to make friends, I guess. Zlatan's first game in the MLS came in a derby against LAFC, where he found himself as a substitute, but when he came on, he really put on a show with an insane volley to level the game and then a last-minute header to secure his team the victory. After the match, he had this to say:
"The fans were demanding something and I gave them Zlatan."
Zlatan went on to spend 2 seasons in the MLS, where he was clearly a cut above the rest of the league. He scored 56 goals in 52 games, was an MLS All-Star in his 2 seasons, and was named the captain in his 2nd season. He also scored his 500th career goal against Toronto and said that he was happy for Toronto, as they would be remembered as his 500th victim. Now, during his time in America, there was often the debate between who was the best player in the MLS, as he was being compared to Carlos Vela, but Zlatan wasn't having any of this. Zlatan would come back at these remarks saying this:
"There's another player in Los Angeles, Carlos Vela. In this moment, he's got 19 goals, 12 assists, and his team is leading Major League Soccer. Do you still consider yourself the best player in Major League Soccer?"
By far. Because if he's in his prime, how old is he?
Carlos Vela's 29.
29. He's playing in MLS and he's in his prime. When I was 29, where was I?
Yeah, you were in Europe.
Big difference.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
But now, after 2 years of domination, Zlatan was done with the MLS, but not done with football, because he still had some unfinished business left over in Italy, as since he left AC Milan all those years ago, they declined from a powerhouse to a club that was struggling to even get Champions League football. So Zlatan knew what he had to do. It was time for the Lion to return. Ibrahimović re-signed for AC Milan halfway through the 1920 season at 38 years of age with one mission: to take Milan back to the top of Italian football. In his first season back, he performed well, scoring 11 goals in 20 games, but more than just the goals, he was instilling belief in his teammates that they could go on and do something special. In January of 2020, he scored a goal against Cagliari, which was a significant milestone, as he became the first player to ever score in 4 separate decades, being the 1990s, 2010s, and now the 2020s. Going into the 2021 season, Zlatan and Milan had a phenomenal start, as they found themselves top of the league in January. Now, remember, at this point, Juventus had won 9 titles in a row, meaning that for anyone else to win, it would be an insane feat. But the issue came when Zlatan picked up a season-ending injury, which caused Milan to fall away, and instead, Inter picked up this title, which still put an end to the Juve domination. By the end of this second season, Zlatan's contract expired, but he refused to give up just yet, so he signed an extension with the hope of bringing the Serie A back to AC Milan. Going into this next season, Zlatan was 40 years old, and at an age where he really shouldn't have been playing top-flight football. He was defying all the odds, but that's what he does. His performances did slow down slightly this season in terms of output, but he still chipped in with 8 league goals and 3 assists. But the power of Zlatan was more than just goals. He instilled belief in his team and was a crucial part of this season. Come the end of the season, Milan were still looking like they were going to lift the title till April, when Zlatan faced a heartbreak. On the 30th of April 2022, it was announced that Mino Raiola passed away. This was devastating for Zlatan, as he was so much more than just an agent. He was like family. The month later, Zlatan and AC Milan managed to lift the Serie A title for the first time in 11 years, which Zlatan dedicated to Raiola. What's crazy is that after this season, Zlatan came out and said that he played the last 6 months with an ACL tear, meaning after every single game, he had to drain fluid from his knee, and he always played with extreme pain. But this was worth it, as he finally got Milan back to the top of Italian football. Zlatan signed a 1-year contract extension, which would see him playing into the 22-23 season, but due to these injuries, he didn't really play much, and he was finally ready to hang up his boots, as at 41 years old, his body was starting to give way. So at the end of the season, he finally announced his retirement from football. 570 career goals, 34 trophies won, and now looking back on his childhood, Zlatan always has a full fridge of food. What a player. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I've got another one I'm sure you'll like on screen now. Trust me, you should watch it.